welcome everybody. Bill Wilson here from the Oregon Ministry Network, and I want to tell you I'm very excited about you joining us, and we have a very special guest today, Kimberlee Morris. She and Joel pastor in Lakeview, Oregon, in the southern part of the state, doing a fabulous job in this great community. And the reason that I asked Kimberlee to join us is because she has been teaching her children at home for several years, and she has some tremendous insights about teaching and the whole structure of homeschool, which a lot of people are having to face for the very first time in light of the COVID-19 issues and schools closing or not opening and online learning. A lot of challenges for our pastors' families and leaders' families here in the Oregon Ministry Network. So first of all, Kimberlee, thank you for joining us today and being a part of this presentation.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You and Joel have pastored in Lakeview for how long now?
7 years.
7 years. Now, you actually grew up in Lakeview, if I recall, or at least spent some time of your early childhood life there?
I was born here, and we moved away before I was 1, so I didn't actually remember any of it. But I have a little bit of roots here, yeah.
Yeah. Probably has given you a lot of change in your pocket to be able to say, yes, I started my life here in Lakeview.
It's been a huge opportunity.
Sure. Well, thanks for all that you and Joel do. Your husband, Joel, is an extraordinary man and serves as a regional presbyter for us for the under 40 group. And you have two fine boys in your life, Jonathan and Andrew. Tell us a little bit about these two boys.
They're amazing. John and Andy are very technologically oriented. They love all things technical. So my life is not the way I imagined it would be, because it's all talk about Apple and Tesla and coding and Starlink and rockets. But they're very, very gifted young men. They're very intelligent. We've had our ups and downs, like every family has. And we've had some unique challenges with just the way some of their brains work and things like that. But it's been an amazing, extraordinary experience getting to be their homeschool mom, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Wow. Well, a lot of people, whether they chose this path or it's just been thrown on them, are faced with teaching their children at home. Some are very equipped like yourself, who have learned and gotten involved, and others are like, what do I do now? How is it going to go this year? I've got 2-3 kids home. And tell me, what does it take for teaching children at home? What does it take for it to go well?
You know, it really takes the right attitude more than anything. There have been a lot of studies that have been done about the preparation, education level of parents who teach their children at home. And what they found is that across the board, in study after study, it's not a person's educational achievement, and it's not even a person's economic class that determines the achievement level for homeschool families. It typically has to do with just the can-do attitude, and it has to do with that level of responsibility, where when a parent signs on the dotted line and says, I am going to take responsibility for the education of my child, and you do this when you register to homeschool, you sign on the dotted line with the state of Oregon and say, this is now my responsibility. It's an awesome responsibility. And something just kind of happens in your head, I think, where you're like, wow, we're really doing this thing. And it's those parents, it's the parents that don't even have a high school diploma. It's the parents with a PhD and everyone in between. When they sit down at the table and they say, we are going to do this and we're going to do it well. And as Christians, we especially have an opportunity to do it unto the glory of God. And so every day is an opportunity to do this to the glory of God. And I really believe he's honored by that attitude. We know it from scripture. And I've seen that played out in our own lives as we've encountered challenges and all these things. And I thought, I don't know how I'm ever going to do this. I don't know how we're ever going to meet these challenges. And taking a step back and saying, this is an opportunity for God to be glorified. Maybe it's not the way I anticipated it being. And that was really even my story getting into homeschooling. I was the most anti-homeschooling parent you've ever met in your life. I'm sure you've never met anyone that was more anti-homeschooling than me. And God told us to homeschool. And I was like, that can't be a good idea. There's no way.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing to tell God. But I did. And he was gracious and he worked with me. I had the advantage of a couple of years of preparation before we really got into it. But whether it's a couple years or a couple of weeks, God can do it, and he can do it through you when you're a willing vessel.
So a lot has to do with your personal attitude
Mhm.
and your personal structure. So what would a typical school day look like for you in your home now? And maybe for that parent who's starting out, what are some keys that you found to be very important to keep the pace and the structure well?
Sure. Well, setting the pace with attitude is huge. So faith, optimism, flexibility. Every day is not going to go the way you plan on it going. That's okay. And just the understanding that different is okay. It's not going to look exactly the way it did in my classroom growing up. So sometimes you see new homeschool families start out and they're like, all right, everybody, Pledge of Allegiance, stand at your desk. And they're trying to recreate the classroom experience at home. And it does
Yeah.
not have to be that way. In fact, there's a lot of things that it's just not worth it. Not that the Pledge of Allegiance isn't, but what you really want to do is create a culture of learning in your home. Learning is a lifestyle, so you're learning all throughout the 24-hour period. But it's very, very helpful to have a healthy routine to start off in the morning with school. The kids they really are more fresh in the morning. You might think, my kid is not a morning person. They can learn to get up. And at my house, we get dressed. We don't do school in pajamas. A lot of families relish that opportunity. But I say we want to bring our best. And so we're going to get up.
Right.
We're going to get ready. We're going to have a healthy breakfast. We exercise before we do our school day. Just all of those healthy routines play into a successful school experience at home. There's a lot of parents who think, well, my kids just gravitate to the TV. They just gravitate to the video games. They just gravitate to their toys. And at our house, there's absolutely no television or screens of any kind before we do school. It's just not an option. And when kids want to do it anyway, it just gets taken away. Like for months. We've had periods of time where the Wii controller has spent 3 months in the gun safe.
Yeah.
And it's just like too bad, because that's not what we're going to be. So and then having good materials and knowing it's hard to know where to start when you first start homeschooling, because there's so much out there, but people don't even know where to turn. So I'm happy to help anybody who's considering doing that, to point them in the right direction. I've been sending lists to people of like, these are my recommendations. We've got just tons of resources, but there's never been a better time to homeschool because there's so many resources out there.
So at the end of the presentation today in this interview, we'll give them some direction on how to get a hold of you and get a hold of materials that can help them. Because in some cases, the school districts are providing online classes. And so for some parents, technology is not a big deal, but for others, it's going to be a big deal. And so even in those resources, you'll be able to coach them through that, or at least provide some direction for them.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that people are probably going to run into is just figuring out how to motivate their kids at home.
Okay.
And establish those new routines, and to figure out what is a healthy expectation. Do they need to sit at my kitchen table for 6 hours and do school like they go to school for 6 hours?
Sure.
No, they don't need to, because there's no classroom, there's no transfer time. My kids do their school in 2 to 3 hours every day, and I have a high schooler.
Yeah. Okay.
Now his high school load's going to get a little bit higher this year. But I mean, we will not be spending more than 3 to 4 hours for sure. And a motivated kid like my high schooler, I wake up, I come down to the kitchen for breakfast, and there's usually a stack of books on the table waiting for me to grade. So, which is awesome. And it gives it the rest of the day for him to pursue other interests and grow in other ways. I think that's great. But it's going to be establishing those. I don't know what a typical online only curriculum is supposed to look like over the course of the day. I don't know how many hours that should be, but the key is, if you will set up a regular spot to do homework, if you'll set up a regular routine around that, and just sitting down with your kids and being like, all right, this is what we're going to do. And we're going to do it the best we can for the glory of God. And we're going to be as healthy as we possibly can. And I talk with my kids about, like, what do successful people do? Do successful people sit on the TV and watch TV all day? No, they do not. So because you want to be successful someday, you're not going to sit and watch TV all day either. And so we just apply all those things. And I feel like we can be honest with our kids and,
Sure.
and really bring that positivity and that motivation to them, and they'll pick it up.
We're talking to Kimberlee Morris. She and her husband Joel pastor in Lakeview, Oregon, and they are really doing a fabulous job there, not only in the church but raising two wonderful boys, Andy and Johnny, as I know them, and just terrific kids. Kimberlee's been doing this for a while, so what she's sharing with us today is from personal experience. It's not just something she decided to do this year, and she has a lot of good resources we'll share with you in a moment. One question I have, Kimberlee, is the hat, the parent hat and the teacher hat. Is that the same for you, or do you actually have to kind of separate them? What do you found to be the best in that respect?
That's a really good question. It's about the culture that you create in your home. So from the very beginning, when we began, my kids were really little. We've completed 10 years of homeschooling. From the very beginning, I actually had them sit at a low table that was appropriate for their little bodies. And for the first 2 weeks of class, I stood over them in a very firm, authoritative stance, like a teacher would. And I did it very, very intentionally. And I'm really glad I did, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to establish my authority. I am your teacher right now, and you will do as I say, because this is school. And it was kind of surprising to them at first. And then what I found was that after a couple of weeks, I was able, and I planned this. It was just, I feel like it was the Lord's wisdom in our situation, at least. So maybe it'll help someone else. But after a couple of weeks, I kind of softened my approach, and I found myself sitting at the table with them more. But I still had established that authority with them. And then, of course, from time to time, they kind of challenge that, and they want to do things their own way. And then I have to assert my authority a little more and say, no, I'm asking you this because I'm your teacher, and the state of Oregon expects me to be your teacher right now. So you will do this. But remember, we're doing this to the glory of God, and he's watching you right now too. And so I've really taken a firm stance that way. But for the most part, because the culture of our home is school matters, mom is the teacher, dad's the principal, and we go to his office when we're in trouble, then really 99% of the time that we're doing school, it's just a very soft and tender and loving and nurturing mother-child relationship. But they know I'm in business.
Right. I love the fact that you just said that school does matter. It's not just a tag on that we're having to do this year, and I really feel bad for you, but this is important, and you have made it a priority in your schedule, in your family. Where is this going, do you think, Kimberlee, with regards to the future education with kids? Some kids learn much better in this environment, by the way, than they do in the socialized environments, especially with some of the curriculums that are being taught in public school settings. Where do you, what's your perspective, and what hope can you give parents?
Yeah, well, for one, I would take the socialization thing off the table altogether. My kids are highly socialized, and our homeschool environment is actually a very, very sociable experience within our family, but also they have the freedom to spend time with their friends throughout the day. And they do, they're texting their friends all the time, and they're like, I'm almost done with my math. And when I'm done with my math, my mom says we can go on a bike ride together. They're like, awesome. I'm going to hurry up and finish my spelling so we can do that, and then they meet up around town, and they're doing things all the time. But where the future this is going, I have no doubt that those who are schooled at home in whatever capacity have the opportunity to really come out of this thing ahead. But I think it really depends on the attitude that we bring to it. So for those families who are sitting around the kitchen table and saying, boy, this really stinks, I can't believe COVID messed up our lives like this. Those kids are going to pick up on that attitude, and they're not going to get as much out of the experience.
Right.
But those whose parents really bring to the table that motivation and that positivity and that faith that God could really do something great, I have no doubt these kids are going to be able to go to college, that they're going to be able to excel. In fact, the studies show that when a parent is motivated, the kids do better in homeschooling than they do in other environments. Academically, they really have a leg up. And I feel like I'm seeing that in my own kids as they're approaching high school. that it really is working. I do think, I was talking with our school district superintendent about this a couple weeks ago. I think that education was already moving in a direction of having more options and more opportunities for learning in different ways. But we were about 10 to 15 years out from where we find ourselves now. And COVID just kind of pushed it along a little bit faster.
Wow.
So it's been a really hard turn towards a different way of doing things. And I think everyone's feeling the crunch of that. But
Sure.
if we can do our best to adapt quickly to this situation, they say, just like with your church, pivot and, just pivot and adapt and try to do that. That those are the kids, the kids whose parents are able to do that well are going to be the kids who come out of this really strong.
Right.
And then the other thing about where this goes is that it's an opportunity to really focus on the basics, that reading, writing, and arithmetic that we've always heard about.
Right.
And over the years, there's been a lot of creep of a lot of other things into the educational world. And this sending kids back home is forcing us back to those basics, which is going to be good for our kids in the long run. If we can help them master letters and numbers, then they will have all the tools they need to pursue other interests as they get older.
Kimberlee, this is so enjoyable. You could be my teacher, I'm sure. You would have been staring down at me and saying, "Okay, Billy, I want you to concentrate on what you're doing." I guess we're kind of running out of time here, so I just wanted to wrap this up by saying that you have materials and or websites or direction for people who are really interested in following this up, and we'll post that on our Oregon Ministry Network website so that we don't have to go through all that trying to help people. But one thing that you did say in our contact is that you're willing to talk to any of our pastors' families who are trying to wrestle with all of this. I think I've talked to a few, not a lot, but I've talked to a few that are just simply overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They're overwhelmed.
And it's totally understandable.
Yeah. And especially like you made a commitment right from, this is a choice you made. In some cases, some have not had this choice. They're trying to balance a job. They're trying to make sure they don't leave their kids behind. And as you said earlier, I think that this could be a great opportunity. I think that many people have had a negative view of children that are taught at home. Mm-hmm. But what you're proving is that doesn't have to be, that's not actually the case. In many cases, students are excelling, they're getting better education, and the socialization piece is overrated. And in some cases, as a parent, our kids are all grown now, we have grandchildren, but we spend a lot of time trying to help them work through some of the heartbreak of socialization. And it had nothing to do with their educational experience. It was, this person said this to me, or they won't talk to me anymore, or I can't, they're rude, and then you had the issues with coaches and teachers who weren't pleasant or used foul language or stuff that just was contrary to our moral standards. So anyway, those are some things that I think we've all wrestled with. Any final thoughts you'd like to give, and maybe your willingness to share a contact?
Yeah, well, I just want to encourage everybody. I know that it's overwhelming, and anytime you have a crisis, it is overwhelming. It's not expected, and it involves transition, and so those things are hard. I wouldn't have even thought about homeschooling or prayed about it, or I didn't pray about homeschooling. Just, Lord, what do we do about education? If it weren't for the recession of 2007 and 2008 and the mortgage crisis. And that ended up being the thing that caused us to seek the Lord. So what I'm telling people is just seek the Lord, because he knows what the best thing is for your family. He had something that was the best for our family that was far different than I thought it was going to be. And along the way, he signed me up for clubs that I did not sign up for. But they really, they really have been for our good, and they've been for the good of other people. So seek the Lord, let him open the right doors for you, let him lead you. And then if anyone wants to reach out to me and contact me, I have made myself available for the month of August. I'm going to shorten that a little bit because I'm going to be starting some classes of my own on August 24th. So in the next 2 weeks, I'm offering free consultations to anyone who would be looking to pick a curriculum or figure out how to create a healthy routine at home. You can contact me through Facebook. My name on Facebook is Kimberlee Grissom Morris. That's Grissom Morris. And so you can find me on there. You can call me or text me at 509-590-9965, or you can email me at kimberlee.j.morris@gmail.com. So
Great. Kimberlee, thanks for joining us today. And some of this information will be available at the Oregon Ministry Network website, or you can call our offices if you didn't catch all of that, and we'll try to get you connected. Thanks for your willingness to share a little bit of your life and your extraordinary family. Please tell all the men of your life hi for me. And God bless you, and we'll look forward to connecting again real soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.